who will lead through the webinar series. She is an associate professor of social cultural anthropology at the Department of Philosophy and Cultural Heritage at Ca' Foscari University of Venice and deputy director of NICHE, the new institute, the Center for Environmental Humanities. She usually organizes this webinar series with Sertaç Sehligolu, who is an associate professor at University College London. Unfortunately, Sertaç could not join us today, but we are joined by speakers. The first speaker is Elisabetta Costa, who is a digital anthropologist and associate professor at the University of Antwerp. And the second professor who's joining us is Ela Draškević, if I have pronounced this correctly. She is an ethnologist and associate professor at Lund University, specializing in political, economic, and organizational anthropology. If we're lucky, we might be also joined by Anna Ivasiuk. Anna is a social anthropologist and teaching fellow at University College Dublin. She's also a member of the EASA Executive Committee, and she was also the president of the EASA. So with that said, I'm handing over to Roberta to take over.
So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Sultan, for introducing everything. Just few words for giving you some background of why Sertaç and myself decided to organize this. That was highly supported and also somehow asked from EASA, this kind of seminar. Myself, I am a ERCPI, and before I was fully precarious, and in changing status, I encountered a number of challenges that I recognize and very, very common among colleagues. So I often have discussions with these colleagues on how we can handle things, we can create a better environment for everyone. And Sertaç and I thought that we don't have to keep these discussions in closed rooms, but to share with all the community, because we cannot change an environment if we keep these discussions by ourselves. And so this series came from this idea. With a specific focus on intersectional challenges, and with the idea to create allyship across generations, across status, across genders or positions. This course is not a traditional managerial course in leadership. We are not coaches. We are colleagues, we are anthropologists, and we simply want to critically discuss what leadership can be and somehow aspire to reconceptualize it through both our experiences and challenges and our anthropological gaze. So this is what this space is, and this is a space for us all. There will be 2 or 3 presentations from these other colleagues, and then we will be plenty of time to discuss, to have questions, address doubts, comments, observation. Thank you very much. So we start with Ela, Elżbieta Drawiecki. Thank you, Ela.
Hello. Hi. So this is a very interesting moment for me, because I think the last time I was invited maybe by EASA to do something that was less about my research and more about my trajectory, I was in a position of very, very strong precariety, in a position of losing one job and then finding another and having to work actually 3 different jobs at the same time, and moving, I don't know which time, a country, an institution in my life. And now, a few years later, I'm here, and it is still an adjustment actually for me to learn that I am now in a different position in a panel on leadership, and it's still very awkward. And I think it's very, very important to have those conversations, because the impact that precarity has is huge. It's I would say very traumatic. Not, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but I I think it is for people. Like even now, when I'm in a position of really, really luxurious job, uh, like I remember the struggle, and it's actually hard to get out of that mindset and to think, okay, now I'm in a leadership position. I have to, I should be responsible for others and make sure that others don't have to go through what maybe I went through. Or if they do, because I cannot really change the world much, I can try to make it, I don't know, maybe more livable experience for them. Mm. So I think, so it is interesting, and need to thank Denis, who is Gorbach, who is working with me. But today I did a wonderful mistake of double booking, and Denis is saving me by teaching now for me. So, and that's also part of my kind of message for today, takeaway to make friendship and allianceships. And I owe him that he's doing something for me so I can be here, this fancy lady who is a leader who cannot manage the calendar. So, shout out to him who's doing the hard job now for me. So I think for me, now I try to, I'm not a professor. I need to take that. In my wonderful institution, there is no way of becoming professor. There is a risk I might not never be one, but I was also thinking about the wonderful colleagues who I'm speaking with, and we are all associate professors, and I read accomplishments and bios of all of my colleagues who are speaking today, and Jesus, you have amazing accomplishments, and none of us is a professor yet. It's a full professor. It's interesting. But I wanted to kind of maybe one takeaway from this journey when I was thinking about how I got here is actually not to forget how I get here, how what it meant, so that when people come to me and tell me their stories, or they say they struggle or they lose jobs, and I see people losing jobs around me or not being able to secure new jobs, to make sure I will be, I don't know, sometimes I'm without words because I remember how every word used to hurt when people were saying, oh, maybe you do this, maybe you do that, and things will get better. And actually nothing of that works. To kind of not forget how we got here, and also be very honest that sometimes how we got here was by pure luck, good timing, amazing people who pushed us up, pulled us up, gave us opportunities, which means that maybe sometimes someone else didn't got the opportunity. That I was also internal candidate once or twice. I hated many other internal candidates until I became one. But I also was external candidate a few times. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that the privilege that we had, and many of us had, and I had as well. So not to gaslight those who are still fighting and sometimes don't have that privilege, that, oh, it's all just based on merit. And, if you work hard, and it's all fair, wonderful process. So I think just this kind of honesty, I think for me is very important. And also I would expect from others in those positions to be kind of open about it. I don't think it takes away any credit from anyone. It doesn't take my confidence. I don't think, like if we acknowledge the privilege, if we acknowledge the extra leverage we got, it doesn't take away, it doesn't mean we are unfairly or we don't deserve where we are. But it just maybe is an act of kindness towards those who don't have that in that specific moment, but maybe one day they will as well. So that's one kind of takeaway I try to remember when I'm now in this new position, not to kind of forget how it was and how we got here. I got here. And then I think for many years I was also sometimes when it's difficult, we focus on how bad it is, but I also wanted to maybe today thank all the people that did push me. And I think there are so many amazing people in academia. So men and women who, when I was struggling, somehow reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to write with me?" Or who said, "Come to me I will give you a week in my institution and we will, think about the project you want to write and think about it, how to do it better." And these acts of kindness were very empowering, but also positive and were what I needed in that moment. So I really think it's important to invest in those kind of friendships and collegiality and alliances. And I see how a lot of what I've been able to do is because of, I don't want to use the word networking, but also investing a lot of time in people, in connections with others, like a really positive, like I would say, collegial friendships, not really networking, but just other people, spending time with them, as being interested in others, and then somehow it comes back. I don't know. Um, I don't know. I feel extremely awkward speaking. Yes, building community, someone said. Yeah, and it's something that I didn't realize, I do, but it's something that is very positive. And I want to say that we sometimes, when the doors are closed, we can bitch about people who are not great, but there are also really amazing people in academia, very generous and very useful and helpful and kind. Yes, but I feel extremely awkward to be in the position of telling anyone how to survive this. I moved between, I don't know, five, I guess, different countries. Uh, so I've seen it in many different institutions. Actually, quite of what we experience is quite similar across the countries. Um, I don't know. It's so maybe I will stop here and then we will have a discussion. So maybe you want to find out more, so you can ask me more.
Thank you very much, Ela. You touch upon a few topics that are recurrent also in our first meeting, and maybe we can elaborate more later on in the questions and discussion. As Sultan has pointed to you, please feel free to write your questions in the while in the chat. And now we turn to Elisabetta Costa.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Roberta, and hello, everyone. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me here. It's the first time I'm talking about, it's the first time I'm giving advice in this format. So I'm supervising PhD students and postdocs, so I know how to give one-to-one advice, but it's the first time I'm talking about my academic trajectory to give advice to people. So thank you very much for inviting me here. I would like to first introduce myself briefly. So my name is Elisabetta, and I'm originally from Italy. I was born and raised in Milano, and I did my PhD in Milano Bicocca. Finished it 15 years ago. That was back in 2011. After Milano Bicocca, I moved to London, UCL Department of Anthropology, where I did a postdoc that lasted 3 years plus 1 more year. After London, I moved to the Netherlands, to Groningen, and I worked there for 6 years in a media studies department as an assistant professor. And then almost 3 years ago, I moved to Antwerp, which is located in the north, in the Flemish part of Belgium. And I would like to add an important detail that at a certain point before moving to Belgium, I decided to have a child. And the child now is 3 years and 4 months old. And when I moved to Belgium from the Netherlands, she was 6 months old. And I remember that a lot of friends advised me against doing this. I still remember friends who had kids telling me, are you really sure that you're willing to move to a new country, a new city, starting a new job with a 6 months old? And I said, of course, why not? I didn't have children at the time. I was still pregnant, so I could not really imagine what having young kids means for academics. And I was also a bit disappointed with these friends, right? Why are they implying that I cannot really focus on my career anymore because I have a child? Well, I understood afterwards why they were advising me against this move. It was tough. Relocating to a new country, a new city, starting a new job, designing 3 new courses while you have a toddler at home that does not sleep at night is not easy. So it was tough. It was hard. But at the same time, if I look back at that moment, I can also see that I was able to prepare and submit a successful EASA consolidator grant application. I submitted it when my daughter was 1 year old, and I wasn't sleeping at night. So yeah, this is one of my reflections, but I will go back to this point. So what I will be doing today? Today, I would like to focus on 3 themes. So one is international mobility. And I would like a bit to challenge myth around international mobility in academia. And then the other 2 topics are self-confidence and the importance of relationships and support. And I would like to discuss these 2 topics specifically in relation to the preparation of the EASA grant application. Because the project started 10 months ago, and I started managing my team only 4 months ago. So I would like to talk more about the preparation of the grant application rather than my role as a PI, because I'm very new to that. So myth about international mobility. So international mobility in academia has been presented in a very, most of the time in a very positive way. It's often portrayed as being a tool for academic success. It's also described as a privilege, and to some extent it is. Academic mobility also helped me to move forward in my career. But I think we need to stress how difficult that is. We don't do it enough. Changing countries, relocating to new cities, new university is hard. And I've been doing it quite a lot, and also Ella did it. So this is something we can discuss further in this session today, how tough it is. It's sad because it comes with the need of recreating a network of friends, networks of colleagues, and networks of people that can help you. You have to understand what the new culture in different institutions is, in different countries is, working culture, it's hard. So, and also another reflection is that, we talk a lot about precarity in academia, and indeed that's one of the main structural challenges that we have in academia. But in my situation, if I look back at my experience, I decided to give up a permanent position in the Netherlands, to become precarious again and to move to a new countries. Why? Because I was not in the right department. I didn't really fit well there for several reasons. I would rather not talk about this now. But so yes, I gave up a permanent position to start again as a precarious. So my suggestion is, if someone offers you a job, also a permanent position or a long-term position, make sure that you double check where you are going. Make sure that you double check the departments where you're going. So get in touch with colleagues, with friends, with people who work in that place, to make sure that you are absolutely aware of who you are going to work with and what's the culture of the place. So that's one advice I would give to younger scholars. So now I do have a kind of permanent position, but it will become fully permanent once I will reach B2 level of Dutch. That's a condition that comes from the Belgian government. So I have wonderful colleague. I'm very happy there, but there is this condition that doesn't really give me yet a fully permanent position, even though I'm the PI of a consolidated grant, because I need to reach B2 level of Dutch, which is not easy. For those of you who are familiar with Dutch language, I don't know if any of you is familiar with Dutch, but I studied Turkish and Arabic, and I found Dutch much difficult. I mean, more difficult than Turkish. Okay. Second topics. Self-confidence. Self-confidence is unevenly distributed, right, across gender, social classes, social background. And as a woman who was raised and educated in Italy, I do and I did lack self-confidence. And this is something I've been working on myself for a long period of time. And I was trained in Italian university 25 years ago. So now the situation is very likely different, but 25 years ago, I was also socialized to academic system in which you have to defer to academic authority. And I really noticed a difference with my colleagues when I moved to the UK. This freedom of expressing opinion, expressing our ideas, trusting ourselves in what we think. It's something that I really needed to construct and to build as an adult, because I was not socialized to this as a student or as a young adult. And this is really important. So as a women, we don't have the same confidence that men have most of the time. And I will give you an example. I wrote my EASA proposal in the summer of 2023. I wrote my draft. So the main research question were the main theoretical, the main literature review was there, but I had only few disorganized pages. And then I had to start teaching in October, had to design courses, new courses. I didn't have time to prepare and work on the proposal. And around mid-November, which was more or less 1 month before the deadline, I look at my agenda and I said, oh, well, if I want to submit the EASA, I have to rush, right? We don't have a lot of time available. And I counted the days I could work on my EASA proposal, and I had only 7 or 8 full days of work. Let's say around 12 half days. And I said, okay, I have to do it. And I did it. So in the end, I didn't really spend a lot of time to transform the draft into a polished proposal. I thought that my idea was good. The research questions were innovative, were relevant, but I would have rather worked much more on the details of the proposal, but I didn't have the time to do it. So when I submit the proposal, I thought, well, I'm afraid that it might be a C. I don't know if you're familiar with the assessment of the EASA, with the system of the EASA assessment, but if you get a C, you are not allowed to submit a new proposal in the following 2 years. If you receive a B, you can do it in 1 year, I think. But anyway, when I submitted my proposal, I thought, okay, it will never be funded. Again, this has to do with lack of self-confidence and imposter syndromes, as many others call it. And then that proposal was funded. So please trust yourself. Don't be perfectionist. Women tend to be too much perfectionist, I'm afraid. And I have many other examples about this. I remember when I wrote my first monograph, that was 10 years ago, no, 12 years ago. I had the same feeling. The book is not good enough. It will never be accepted. But then it was considered to be one of the best books in the series. So again, lack of self-confidence. So found your own strategies to find the confidence that you deserve. You saw a question. No, I applied for a consolidator grant, not a starting grant, a consolidator. Third point, importance of support and relationship. This has been already mentioned by Ella and also by the other speakers in the previous series. It's so important, it's so relevant. We all know it, but it's important to repeat it over again. And again, if I look back at my experience in writing a ERC proposal, it was not a solitary practice. So I remember brainstorming my idea with a colleague in the summer, sitting there for 2 afternoons, just discussing possible research questions, possible ideas. And throughout the process of writing the proposal, at different stages, I was sharing my proposal with trusted colleagues. So I didn't, the very first draft and towards the end of the writing process, and also once the proposal was submitted, I organized mock interviews. So mock interviews are quite taken for granted in North European institutions. Whereas the other day I was talking with a colleague here in Italy. I'm now in Milano. I'm doing fieldwork in Milano. And she mentioned to me that it's not a common practice in Italian universities. Whereas mock interviews are very useful. So if you have an interview, please do it, not just for grants, but also for job interviews. Just practice and ask colleagues and friends to listen to you and try to do your rehearsal all the time. So yes, friendships and support and alliances are key. One reflection I had while Ella was talking before is that since I became a mom, I didn't have the same amount of time I had before, and that was a major change for me. I hope it will get better in the future. My daughter is now 3 years and 4 months old. So I have to prioritize. I cannot work 50 hours per week, 60 hours per week as I did before. If I can work 40 hours, I consider myself lucky. Sometimes I do work less than that. So the first thing I had to cut was networking. And there was a new institution, a new country. I didn't have time for coffees or lunches anymore. If you set your priorities, teaching, you cannot cut on preparing your classes. You cannot cut and get rid of writing and publishing. You have all your tasks. And what is at the bottom of your priority list is networking. And that's something we could reflect more. As working mothers, that's something that is really difficult to achieve, unfortunately. But it's something we can discuss further on. So I would stop this here, but yeah, I'm here for further reflections and discussions. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta, and both Elisabetta and Ella gave us really an idea of this ambiguity of being a leader, especially a woman leader in these times. So that's the title, Friends or Foes. Maybe you are in a position of leadership, but you do not yet have a status as a leader, like permanent position, or you have many other situations in your life that doesn't give you that peace of mind and that stability that in this idealized idea of leaders we can picture, but maybe it's not even realistic, right? And also, both of them gave very practical tips and insights. Is that what we asked? We can spend years is examining as anthropologists the precariousness of our condition, but this is not our aim. It's more to exchange on practical things and real experiences. So thank you very much. I see Ella who wants to say something, but so raise your hands, write your questions so we can have the discussion rolling. Yes, Ella.
Thank you, Elisabetta. I found it very, very interesting. I think I really, I like last part that I had in my own presentation that I decided not to talk. It was about the costs and benefits of all of this, of becoming a leader. And I was like, I don't want to make it a private, like, venting moment. But I want to say something about you. You spoke about being a mom and writing ERC while pregnant and moving with children. My kids are 14 and 10. The cost they had to pay because of my moving, which was involuntary, which very often is presented, oh, you are so amazing, you moved and you are so successful. Please don't leave us, because people assume that I am just loving this life of constant moving, learning new languages, and just I yeah, it's extremely hard. And children are not sponges. They don't learn languages in 2 months, especially when they are dyslexic, especially when they have other issues going on. School systems in our increasingly right-wing govern like countries are hostile even to European migrant children sometimes. Sometimes they are very, very nice. But for instance, in Slovakia, I had to work third job, which was a job of a teacher I was just a teacher in primary school, not just to complement my income, but it was a deal in international school that my children will be able to go there, not because I'm a snob who cannot have a child in a Slovak school, but because 17 Slovak schools refused my children to be admitted. And I basically had no choice. And I had a wonderful opportunity, like a wonderful woman who was running a private school. She was Iranian. She said, "Oh, for some reason loved anthropology." So I was teaching anthropology to 10 and 12-year-olds in Bratislava, so that my kids could have a very privileged education. But that meant I was 2 days out of other work, which was my full-time job in the Slovak Academy of Sciences. And I have photos of my babies, and every photo I have is a photo that I remember the grant proposal I was writing with one finger while breastfeeding. And it shouldn't be like that. And of course, I can that's also the issue of leadership when I speak to my PhD students. Every time they come and they struggle and they say, I have this issue, or they are pregnant, or they have depression, or they have just a block or something difficult, to bite my tongue and not to say, well, if I did this, because it was hell and I shouldn't go for that. And at the same time, I think it sometimes is like when I speak to people who never moved and had wonderful maternity leaves and, lived in the welfare state of Sweden, the inability for them to understand my experience is also very difficult to be able to translate this experience and expect anyone to understand. So I think that is very, very tricky. For us to maintain this language and be proud of ourselves. We are really, I want to bite my tongue, but we are badass. I think, Elisabetta, what you've done, moving with a baby, and I know it, I moved, and we are badass, but very often I'm in a position that I shouldn't filter myself and not speak like this, because we shouldn't be badass, but also because then in many cultural workplaces, this is where I want to move to another point, especially when you move with an ERC grant, then there is a very big risk that you will come and be seen, oh, the prima donna has arrived. And this is something especially I see it, and it's a very important issue to be discussed when we move mobility, when we move with big grants. We're coming with privilege to the people who work very hard, teaching admin, and then we come with 75% of research time, right? Oh, and big money, and look, she's so successful, and nobody cares about the 12 years of struggle I had before. That was huge for me to discover how differently they viewed me in many of the institutions when I moved, and how important so I made a choice that I will prioritize learning about my colleagues and going for coffees for them, and to the point that can you leave my office? Because I talk too much to everyone around. Also because I want to get to know them, because moving makes at least me extremely lonely. It is extreme cost, especially when the kids get older and they play Minecraft all the time and they don't want to talk to you anymore. But yeah, so I think it is very tricky, but it's also very important. That's advice for me. When you move, if you move, make time and effort to get to know people you work with, to find out how, what are the issues in the new institution, not to come with the idea of I will revolutionize everything because, in the other place I used to be in, things were like this. And now I want to offer, even with a good intention, some suggestions. So I think I would say for me now, I yes, in a way I do prioritize. I wouldn't call it networking, but it's also for my own well-being that I know I want to stay here and I need friends, and that just takes coffees. And I will enjoy these coffees, even if it means I will be less productive. But yeah. Anyway, so that's but I think there is maybe one last point I want to speak about fitting into department, which was very, very important, like how do we fit into departments? And it's like I moved between so many different like sociology, now I'm in ethnology in Sweden, and never thought about it, but it's very, very important for my colleagues in my department to self-identify as ethnologists, hence my weird anthropology/ethnology like bio. And I think that's a discussion maybe I would like to have also in the association in EASA about how can we be together, folklorists, ethnologists, anthropologists, because when I've seen so many times now being on the other side, how suddenly people are applying for jobs in across Europe and they are told, oh, you're not anthropologist enough because they have came from ethnology. And then they're like, oh, you are not ethnologist enough. And it's becoming like really like I haven't seen it before. It's a new issue for me, like new situation, something happening there. So how do we fit in? How do we move between those institutions, especially when we are told interdisciplinarity, mobility, but then there is this, I think, some kind of reaction to it by being very boundary making and resistant to that and trying to fit in again and again and again. And yes, I know the difficulty of learning the other language. It's just impossible. Like after this 3 hours of language course, I'm not that keen that I will have to do today. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you very much. I think there is one question for Ella
Mm.
and one for both of you.
What is it?
So the one for Ella is, would you mind walking us, is from Inga Koraleska.
Mhm.
And please, Inga, if you want to jump in. She asked, Ella, would you mind walking us through your professional trajectory, postdocs, etc.,
Mm.
etc.? And for
Okay.
just let me read also the other one from Camille.
I'm happy to read it if you. Hi, everybody. I just asked this question and then I thought, wouldn't it be much more human if I actually asked it myself?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, it's really nice to meet y'all. And Elżbieta, I know you very well from your work, so it's actually really great to meet you on screen.
You.
Yeah, I also work on conspiracy theories with Yaran. I was his PhD student long time
Oh,
ago.
right.
Anyways, so I first of all I hear you both very much in your and how much you had to give up, and both in terms of your capacities and in terms of your time, things that you would have rather invested in. I wonder though, hearing this, I guess like being where you were 5, 6 years ago, I don't know how many years ago. I'm in a postdoc stage, lots of applications, et cetera, et cetera. I am wondering what you would have done differently, seeing that these trajectories would still have led you to where you are today, to being successful academics, being widely published and well established. So I wonder what is the kind of compromise between not sacrificing or compromising your personal and family life and still kind of trying to robustly build an academic career? I know it's not an easy question, so
No,
if you have any thoughts, they're welcome.
I would
Otherwise,
do
if you
nothing
think,
different.
okay.
Nothing, because I don't believe that I hold so much agency over my life that I don't, maybe if I was, yeah, I can say, oh, you should, if I published faster and better. I submitted my PhD, if you ask about my career. I started at Warsaw University. I moved for Erasmus to Sweden before Poland was a member of the EU. Okay, I don't want to make it a sobbing story of an Eastern European, but I moved without money. I didn't get, I was given opportunity to study, but I was not given a scholarship. So I moved without any money doing a little bit of magic to get visa to Sweden, which I will not say on record. And then I worked here also, which I should not say on record because I was not a member of the EU to maintain my living. And then I just suddenly loved learning here. And then they said, you did so many courses, would you like to do master's degree? And I was like, okay, and how? And they said, just write thesis because you collected so many CTEs. I was like, what? So this is the opportunity that someone gave me. They said, would you like to stay? And then they told me, my supervisor said, have you thought about PhD? I was like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I still have three other PhD, like project ideas. I never thought about PhD or academic career. And he said, go abroad. And I was like, okay. And I would never think about it because pre-internet, I had no clue about the world. And he was like, you go to Cambridge, it's the best place. I was like, what? What's the difference? I was from Poland. I was like, university is university. Warsaw, Jagiellonian, who cares? But he said, no, you go high and then you go low. And I was like, okay. Someone believed in me. But also I felt like, why not? I also believed in myself enough to be like, why not? Of course, will be fun. But but I would not do anything differently because when I finished my PhD in Cambridge and I did it before the deadline, 1 month, and then 1 week after I submitted, I delivered a baby. And then my baby never slept, never. It was hell. Uh, what would I do differently? Like I was unable to function as a human with a crying baby. Yes, I can be upset at myself that I didn't publish for the first 2 years of her life. But I had a little human who was never sleeping. So, and please don't tell me about sleeping, whatever, education, because it didn't work. It was a situation. And then I worked for the government outside of academia. But at the same time, with this sleeping baby, yes, I can tell you, I scored 2 Marie Curie grants. But I have chosen the Irish one vis-a-vis the Polish one because I thought I can always go back to Poland. Turns out it wasn't so easy to go back to Poland after. But I don't live by regrets. I think also, like, I know I don't have so many things that happened to me, and I have evidence, and I know for sure happened not because of me, but because of things beyond my control. Other people, not always nice people, uh, bad luck, you know. Uh, it's just how it was. And then I had Marie Curie, you asked about trajectory. Marie Curie in Ireland, that I just got there and then someone left. I got the job after them because we were perfect match and it was like I just, picked up day teaching. And then 2 years became 7 years. And then it was time to go. Not by my own choice, maybe, but that was a risky move I did. I moved to Slovak Academy of Sciences. And by some, it was a risky because, like, if you understand the hierarchy of institutions in Europe, that's not very high top place to go. Extremely low salary, extremely low, 800 euros. It's not enough for the rent. But I took the risk and because I wanted to be closer to Europe. I missed Europe, and also I knew that by that time I had enough in my brain, no one will ever take that away from me. I had enough colleagues. I felt like, okay, Vienna is close. I can do some sub-teaching in Vienna. Maybe I will beg them for that. Reach out to people, talk, do the cold email, say, hey, remember me at this conference 20 years ago? We met by the coffee table. Well, I'm looking for a job. Right. And yes, and they said, okay. So I did some adjunct teaching there, which saved me as well. But it meant that in the morning I had to run, take kids to school, catch a train, do the teaching, and then catch the train back. And if I missed that train, I would not collect my children from school. Fun. But, um, I don't know. But I would not. I am where I am, and it's okay. It's fine. It's more than okay. I actually want to make that point. I think our job is extreme privilege. I do believe as civil servants, we have a duty. The amount of money, I know I earned really little money in the past, but still, I know what it means to work outside of academia, to work in Lidl, in other places. Jesus Christ, we are so lucky. The fact that I can have this lovely chat now with you, people in working hours, and my employer pays for that, it's a luxury. So I have no regrets.
Elisabetta, thank you, Ella. Elisabetta, you also want to say
Yeah,
something
no,
about Camille?
yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've been thinking about the question, but actually, I wouldn't know what to say. I would also say that I wouldn't really change anything. I don't have regrets at the moment. There are not things that I would have done differently, to be honest. I might think longer about this. I am the kind of person that needs to think quite long, but at the moment, I wouldn't be able to say, yes, I would do something differently. I'm quite happy with the choices I made. And about for your second question about the balance between private life and academic life, I mean, my reflection is that I had my only child, when I was already 40 plus. And I've been exposed to a lot of conversations about combining academic work with motherhood, how tough that is. And to be honest, I never really realized how tough it is until the point I went through this myself. And combining academic work with motherhood is really hard. So there is not a right way to balance the two things. I don't know. I mean, in my case, I was lucky enough to have a child when I already had almost, I mean, kind of a permanent position. I mean, free books, and so I was able to build my career without kids. I don't know how it could be, like in your case, Ella, or in the case of other female scholar, to build your career once you have young children, because it's really hard. Maybe you are younger, you have more energy than in your 40s, so you have more time and resources to combine the two professions. Yeah, but there is no really an easy answer to the question how to combine academic life and especially
Thank
when
you.
kids do not sleep at night. Yeah.
Thank you, Elisabetta. Maybe I intervene and say a couple of words about this question from Camille too, because some years ago I wrote a paper about the toxicity of intersecting reproductive precarity and job precarity. But that was I thought, my last article of my life, my last academic article. It was like, okay, this is my contribution. And I thought that was the end of my academic career. I had my first child. I discussed my PhD thesis at the 8th month of my pregnancy. As as Ella, I like didn't publish for 2 years or so, while my friends were at conferences and I was breastfeeding on the sofa and things like that. And then slowly by slowly, doing thousands of other jobs in the while, I got a little precarious jobs in academia. But in the while also I lost three children. Um, One I had a stillborn. I gave birth at the 7th month and he died. And then I lost a baby at the 4th month, and then I lost a baby at the 2nd month. And I came to understand that was for me was the toxicity of the academic environment, and I wanted to stop because for me priority was, the family and these relations. And that's why I wrote that article, expressing how the entire system should change to make meaningful work. And I accepted the idea that I would never ever had a career in academia.
Mm.
But then you know what happened? Thank you for the hearts. Sorry, I share not to vent, but because we are sharing, these are somehow really empirical things that we all share. And you know what happened? That then I find myself in my hobby time, because I was a ski teacher, I was a gardener, but then in the night or wherever, I was still reading, I was still writing, I was still doing this job, even having fully accepted that I would never ever had a career. And then things just started to flourish. I don't know, as the others said, out of chance, out of meetings, being in the right place at the right time. But also maybe my creativity was even stronger once I accepted to be free from the suffocating feeling that I have to have a career as others, right? So I don't know. Maybe we cannot really make things different. So
I want to second that. I think it's very important also to not compare each other. Like when I was in a position of precarity, I knew that when my children, first and second, they were born, I could see how people with whom I was finishing PhD, I was ahead of them. I finished before them, to the point that we were laughing that the way to make a person to finish a PhD on time was to make them pregnant. That was the only people who didn't ask for extensions were me and my colleague who were also pregnant. Everyone got extensions, so in a way, we were faster. And then I saw them, woo, go away, goodbye, with wonderful stories, how amazing their careers are, and everything is so easy. And I wanted to kill all of them. Uh, I was like, what the, and the money is not issue. I was like, like, on what planet of privilege do you people live? And I knew exactly how some of them got jobs. And I was like, yeah, talk to me more. And but once you let it go in a way, for you, at least for me, and I made a choice that I want to spend time with my children, and I accepted I will not have academic output that others have. And yes, I'm not a professor and I might not never be one, and that's okay. It's bad for my wallet and my pension fund. That's the only thing I care about. But to be honest, I don't like you can I don't see disrespect in my colleagues' eyes if I don't have a professor title. Camille, you said something so nice that you knew my work before. Jesus, that's amazing and thank you. And it's always like, wow, someone read me. I'm like, pay me in citations. But it's like it's okay. And my kids still like me, even though I throw them through torture of moving all the time. So I think what I wanted to say, for instance, for EASA, that was important. I remember when Eva was born and I had no job. I worked outside of academia and I organized the panel in EASA, a long time before. Well, she was tiny, and then I thought, like you, Elizabeth, oh, I will just go. And I was like, oh, I have no money. How do I go with a baby? But I was like, I'm going with a baby. I'm not staying away from her. And I emailed EAS and I said, I'm going with a baby. I need financial support. And EASA did that. And I've learned every time someone invited me to give a talk, to go for a conference, I always said, but I'm coming with a baby. I need help. I have never been rejected help once. It's amazing. Like I had, but also maybe call me crazy, but in LSE, they gave me a place in a crash for 2 days for a conference. I came from Ireland to London with a baby. I put a baby in a foreign kindergarten that I didn't know anyone in. Like I left the baby and went for a conference. I hired nannies who stayed in a hotel, or someone sent a student who was exploited to mind my child in a hotel room, or my friends were at the conference and saved my ass when something didn't work out and they mind my baby. Uh, but I think that's also this kind of like ask for help. If EASA didn't support me financially, in that conference in Paris, that was important. That helped me. Um, and yes, and also the friends that came forward and minded my baby when I was giving a talk, and they were with her in the cafeteria. So, so I think but I accept that my career is slower. When someone makes a comment, I'm just rolling my eyes. It's fine.
Yes.
But can I add something that an
Sure.
important conversation that needs to be done is really how there are still a lot of institutions, academic institutions in Europe that do not really take into account maternity in the hiring procedures, in the promotions procedures.
Yes.
So there are grants like the EASA that takes into account 1.5 years for each child you have. So that means that you have more time to apply for grants if you had kids, but that's not the case for a lot of hiring
No.
procedures in different institutions. So, for
So
example, a woman with 2 kids is assessed exactly like men with no kids, right? So this should be changed. There are a lot of transformations that institutions can implement okay, we're
yeah.
entering a field that has been discussed quite extensively, but still quite
And I think,
problematic.
for instance, this is very interesting how different country experiences are, right? Uh, and even like in which country will we put maternity leave on our CV, in which we will not, and make those find out. Like in Sweden, in Nordic countries, please put your maternity leave on CV because people do take that into account. In other countries, maybe not so much, right? So don't, unfortunately. But I think what I don't want to sound like, oh, look at me, I'm so moral and I know what to do. But now, when I'm in the positions of hiring people, of having that privilege of sitting on the committees, I do try to ask this, like, let's find out. Was there a baby somewhere? Like when I see there is a gap, there is something slower. PhD takes 8 years suddenly instead of 5. Or so let's ask a follow-up question in a respectful way, which is tricky how to do it, but to account for it, so now to take that responsibility on me, that it's my job to support others and take that into account, because I do agree, like uh, I like, especially, but at the same time, for instance, Nordics, yeah, wonderful welfare state, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, here we cannot hire postdocs. There are very strict rules, for instance, that you can be postdoc only a few years after PhD. What if you had babies? Like, like, it's not okay. It's too short. Like, people are now postdocs 10 years after PhD. That this career path of, PhD, postdoc, assistant professor, associate professor is still very man-driven kind of idea. I agree that, but I try to do my own give back in my own way, like when I evaluate research proposals or things like that, I try to pay attention to that. But I see how many people don't. That's true.
It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. There is anyone else who has a comment or a question? Sultan.
Yes, I have a question. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing and also for being very honest. Kind of, you said several times unfiltered, and I appreciated that. And I'm also talking as someone who has two children. One child was born before my PhD. I did my PhD in the US, and one child was born after my PhD. Partly because when I came into the program, I was told, do yourself a favor, don't have a second one while you're in this program. So it's very interesting what we're talking about because we've so far only talked about ourselves as the female women academic navigating this. And I'm saying this because I had years when I was a single parent, but I do have a partner who's also an academic and who has responsibility. So I wanted to ask this question. Where is partnership in all of this? Why is it that it becomes a women's problem to manage childcare, schools, sick leaves? So what is your view on that? And also, like, are we, I mean, this is a mentorship, like this is a women's leadership program, but at the same time, what is it about women in kind of taking on a lot of tasks, domestic tasks, social reproduction tasks that should be delegated and shared, right? Where is the issue? Is it an institutional issue? You would say. In my case, I mean, I lived in the US for the longest for my academic life. I came to the UK only 3 years ago. There was no maternity leave. It was your problem, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to hear more about how these things are distributed between partners. I mean, your partner doesn't have to be a man, obviously, like, whatever relationship you have, how are children shared? How is that responsibility shared?
Elisabetta, who
Yeah,
wants to start us off?
yeah, I can say a few words on this. I'm very lucky because my partner is present. It's a she. It's not coincidence that I have a partner who share a lot of responsibility. I mean, statistics are quite clear, showing that unpaid labor is still on the shoulders of women most of the time. In my case, I'm lucky because my partner is taking care a lot of my child. I would say that it's 60-40. The 60 is on her and the 40 is on me because she has a less demanding job. I think that academic jobs are more demanding than many other jobs at the moment. So that helps. That helps a lot. I don't know how female academics with partners who are not present in the unpaid labor manage to succeed in their career. I could not really envisage how that is possible. So I would be very curious to listen to other experience of women who are alone in raising their kids. Yeah, the presence of a helpful partner is key, I would say.
Um, it's I think the trick is that for me, I had to move. I moved with a partner, and that move, I know that for my partner, it was a big sacrifice also for his career. It was he moved with me. He followed his wife. I'm not sure if that was his dream. If, he paid a very big price for this. And he didn't have a job that was like, oh, I can be an IT coder and move anywhere and still get my Swiss salary from any point in the world. He's not an academic, very, 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 very different working class background. Mm, it's huge. It's very hard. I was very, very lucky that he was extremely supportive of my career, but we both paid a price, very, very big price, how for this. Um, I don't know, like, and I also think that it is very interesting because again, when you move between countries, right? Like you mentioned US and lack of health, the daycare. In Ireland, that's the same. There is only private daycare, and when children go to school, they are 4 years old, and you have to collect them at 12. How the how? Like I don't know how. In and so it's and the cost of kindergarten, like the crash, is it called? There is 1,000 euro. And to translate again this experience of financial sacrifice we had to do, huge financial sacrifice. Now in Sweden, where people have, shared parental leave 1 year and very, 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 very cheap daycare and everything. Like they assume everybody has that in Europe, right? And so it's hard, very hard also for us to anticipate how different regimes of care are in different countries, how different cultures are. And also, like, if we think about gender and like my partner, he was very good with home, domestic, all the work, like really, really good. But the presumptions from the culture we came from Poland, about what kind of woman am I that did that to her husband, how obsessed I must be with career, what kind of person I am. That wasn't very nice, maybe. I know he had to deal with a lot of prejudice as well. Mm, it's not great. Yeah.
For me, all the things that you have said is exactly what means to be a leader. And for me, it was very clear that I cannot be a leader in my own team, in my own working environment without being a leader in my own family. And this exactly goes to the core of the issue, that being a leader doesn't mean to impose things or to decide for everyone, but to be an effective leader, I think, means to listen what are the needs and to try to find a conciliation, negotiation, compromises. And is never perfect, is never easy. So I think a little bit of that role. So this reflects also in how I manage with my partner the academic life and the family life.
But I think, like, for instance, also because all of us have really different country situations, different partner situation, different. So I think it's just something we each have to figure out, I think, by ourselves. But I, for instance, what I now decided to do is that with few colleagues here, friends, hopefully, we like every few weeks, months, whatever, we get out of the office and girls only, and we hang out in after work where we can have kind of a like nice, safe venting discussion, and we made intentional effort. Girls, let's get together, let's meet, and because now, like I have my network of all my friends in another country. I live on WhatsApp. And so for me, that was, for instance, extremely positive and nice to build that and do an effort. And like, I have two kids at home alone. So I'm like, you will come to my place. I also cannot afford drinks, but I will cook for you a soup. So come to me and I cook, we talk. It will be nice. And so I think that helps to then realize that it's not just my horrible suffering, but we actually share so much. So then it's nice to have this session outside of office every now and then and share some gossip, but also happiness and sadness. It helps me at least. But it was intentional effort. I didn't wait for anyone to invite me. I was like, I will do it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ella. And that's exactly in the spirit that Sertac and myself and EASA wanted to organize this meeting. It takes time and energy, but it's intentional. We want to share stories, we want to support each other. And we go back to what you said about the solitude, right, of our work, but also the solitude many times of being a leader. When I finally found myself to be a PI, I was like happy to think, oh, I will have my own team. We will be all friends. I finally will have friends, and they will help each other. I will have everyone, and we will help each other. But this is another things of leadership, that if you are a leader, or if you are in a position like a PI, if you like it or not, the position is not horizontal, right? There are some imbalances of power, and if you hide them, this is damaging for everyone and for the environment. So at a certain point, I understood that first I didn't have to be the nurse because maybe not all the others needed that kind of care and help and support that I didn't have, and I projected on them this. And second, that they are not my friends, right? The postdocs that work in my team, yes, of course, we have friendly relationship. We support each other, we care for each other, but it's different from being my friends. And at a certain point, you have to take accountability on this position and still take care and still be empathic and still all these things, but also see the difference and take care and responsibility for that. Because your role as leader is to also protect your team, is to be responsible and representative for them. That is very different from friendship. That's why it's very important to have allyship with people that are more or less in your status. And I see here Giulia Zanini, who is among us, and we share the office, and she's an extreme wonderful ally in all this. She also has a ERC, and we struggle a lot, but it's so enriching, exchanging and supporting each other. And so we can also better support and take care of our team in that way. Yes, so this is part of the ambiguity, right, of being a leader. That is not crystal clear.
Can I add on this? I had contrasting feelings when my team mentioned to me a few months ago that they had made their own WhatsApp groups. So we created a nice WhatsApp group with all the team members and me. And then I heard, told me, we created our own WhatsApp group. And that's exactly what we are talking about, Roberta. No? Contrasting feelings about, being a leader that puts you in a more solitary position and situation. Right? We are not at the same level. We are not peers, and our position comes with responsibilities and being able also to manage things by ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I also not put the weight of all our worries, of our concerns, the shoulders of people that shouldn't carry that weight as well, right? So in that sense, of course, I didn't meant like I'm in a higher hierarchical position or whatever in an empty way, right? Oh, Giulia, yes. Giulia Zanini.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I only joined very late, so I don't want to repeat anything so I'm really sorry. I'm just because Roberta mentioned our conversation and I found what you all said in this short time I joined so refreshing suddenly. Like suddenly there's a group of people sharing on that. It's not only Roberta and I all the time, like telling each other, is this true? Is it only us? Is it me? Is it? So I think this is really, really useful. I wanted to pick up on what Roberta said to say that for me personally, it's also very much about trying to find a way to be a leader in the team because I'm now a PI and this came to me also a bit in a surprising way, to be honest. So I had to put on this hat and these shoes like rapidly in my career when I also thought, okay, I maybe give up now, like I was so much that I was trying and I had to move again. And things that I have heard from many of you, like moved countries, had another baby while I didn't know whether I would ever have a job again in academia and stuff. And then suddenly I'm the SPI. And the thing is, I think what made me so happy to meet Roberta, but still makes me very much wondering about how I do things and why I do things with the team, but also in my current job and in relation to my personal life, is also not having or having very little experience of a kind of leadership I would like to embody. So, like, I might have an idea of what I would like, but I've never experienced it myself. So it's very difficult to then, put it in practice, I have to say, because then when sometimes I find myself in relationship with other PIs in the same discipline or other discipline who are maybe at the same level, career level as I am, but I come from a completely different, way of living through academia, either because they are, I don't want to make it sound too simplistic, but like white heterosexual men in super, very entitled positions. And they're like, oh yeah, of course, like my team, they do this, they do that. And I'm sometimes like, okay, so they don't wonder whether this is okay or not. I don't know. I have the feeling sometimes we find ourselves trying to find ways to make things in specific ways because we don't want to copy other kind of behaviors or situations that we wouldn't like to sign up for, but at the same time we miss the experience or the references to really be able to embody other kind of things. So sometimes I think this is why we need to sort of continuously talk to each other about how can you move from here? What is it that it's okay or not okay, et cetera, in this kind of position.
Yeah, indeed. I think that what Julia is pointing to is the fact that thinking a leadership should be very clear that this concept can be multiplied, and we as anthropologists are very good at doing these things, and being creative in thinking what is a leader and how we can enact that, find our own voice in being a leader. And we have to feel we are entitled and have the freedom to find different ways from the traditional models. And Ella, I see we are going toward the end, but I see, Ella, you want to add something?
I will be just very quick if I have that skill. So for that, I found what was very good for me. I actually ask men for advice because if they are successful, like when I got my ERC, I actually reached out to men who had ERC and I was like, what do I do? How do I negotiate that? How do I put my big boys pants on? And the advice they gave me, I would never had guts and balls to do it. They were like, Ella, you do this, 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 and that, and you will not go under this, and you will negotiate that. And they were rooting for me. They were fantastic. They were my allies. They were happy for me. So I actually found also friendship with men, but also one of my best friends, Ani Karabo, the professor who is emeritus professor from Stockholm, so fundamental. Every time I have a problem, like Anika, because one thing that I found useful in life is when it comes to children, I ask people who have a bit older children than mine, who are a few steps ahead, like, hey, what do I do? You've been through that, tell me. And the same with the career. Like I like going to people who have a bit more experience than me and ask them, hey, I doesn't mean I have to do it, and also asking people outside of my institution, because in my institution, people can be too invested into little dramas, but actually the dynamics are always the same. So then I find it useful to ask people outside of my institution who are good, amazing colleagues, both men and women, and be like, hey, what would you do here? This is my situation. So I recommend that as well.
Thank you, Ella. And as Sultana rightly suggests, maybe you and Elisabetta can give us just some closing remarks to close this.
That was my closing remark. I think I'm fine.
All right.
Ask for advice. Ask people, hey, what do I do? Don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. Jesus Christ. I make fool of myself nonstop.
Thank you, Ella and Elisabetta.
Now, thank you so much for organizing these events. I think they're really important and we need to have more of these kind of events. So that was a very great, yeah, it's a very wonderful moment. Further advice, again, self-confidence. As women, we really need to work further on this, I believe, especially if you are raised in countries and institutions who that do not really train you to trust your own ideas, opinions, and abilities. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm looking forward to the third episodes of this series.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, both of you. And I leave the lead to Sultan with a preview for the next session.
Hey, well, I mean, this was quite special, I have to say. This was fantastic. And one could really tell that you spoke from the heart. I think there were some questions, like people said, I will connect with you. I hope it's okay if they could reach out to you personally, because I think there might be some, participants who did have very specific questions about their own situation, not having any permanent role, but being in a family situation. About our third event, we don't have a date yet. I know that Roberta and Sartaj are on it when it comes to content. And I think we will, again, have guests. So please look out for the EASA emails and join us. And also Elisabetta and Ella, thank you so much. I hope you can join again. I mean, it's also good to see people coming back and contributing to the conversation. This is not exhaustive, as we can tell. This is it from me. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to Roberta and Ella and Elisabetta again.
Thank you,
See you next time.
And thank you, everybody who was here.